Vikings, let's win this game.
Vikings fans, the day in Minnesota was one of those that makes the heart of the Purple Faithful race. There was a controversial decision about a trade declined, a tactical plan arriving to reignite the season's flame, a quarterback showing soul and leadership, unexpected stories in the roster, and even a player sending a message live to the media. And hold on, because the last one shook everybody. But before we dive into each detail of this breakdown, let me talk to you real quick. Hit subscribe on the channel. It costs nothing, it's free, and it really strengthens this fan-to-fan conversation. Drop a like too, because that helps YouTube show this video to more Vikings fans around the world. Let's go. To be honest with you, the Vikings did extremely well by not getting into the madness of trading for Sauce Gardner. And look, a lot of people were asking for that, right? But when you stop and think calmly, the decision by Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah was one of those that show coldness and long-term vision. The context was tempting. The trade deadline was burning, with GMs making moves all across the league and fans demanding reinforcement in the secondary. But the price asked by the Giants, 2 first-round picks and wide receiver Adonai Mitchell, was simply absurd. The Colts even agreed to pay that, but for Minnesota, it would have been suicide. Kwesi has shown in the past he knows how to act at the right time. It was like that with T.J. Hawkinson in 2022 when he made one of the most accurate trades of the decade for the Vikings. But now the scenario was different. The roster has holes in depth, especially after some draft choices that did not deliver, and giving up 2 first-round picks for a cornerback who is not even the pillar of Brian Flores' scheme? It made no sense. Flores' system is all about quick pressure and confusion for the opposing quarterback. He values pass rush, blitzes, space control. Cornerback is important, but it's not the heart of the system. Byron Murphy Jr. holds one edge. Isaiah Rodgers and Jeff Okudah fulfill the role well. So, as good as Gardner is, he would not be the factor that changes the defense's destiny. And there's more. The guy is talented, yes, but inconsistent. 4 seasons of ups and downs without being the kind of player who changes a game alone. If it were Quinnen Williams, for example, then yes, it'd be worth opening the vault and sending picks away. But for a CB still seeking consistency, Kwesi did what needed to be done. He held firm. The fan may even have ended up with that taste of what if, but the reality is the Vikings won in the long term. 2 first-round picks now mean total control of the future. And with this roster still breathing for playoffs, it was better to keep the base and bet on the defense's evolution as a unit, not on an isolated savior. So, hats off to Kwesi. The decision was cold, but smart. And only here do you get this Vikings fan reading. Because we understand when the team thinks with its head, not with desperation. Comment below if you agree, and hang on because the next point could completely change the course of this season. Now hold this. Kevin O'Connell might be about to pull out that secret weapon that has become his trademark. The winning streak that changes everything. Every fan who follows closely knows. Since he arrived, there always comes a run of 5 or more wins in a row, and after the win over the Lions, the script seems ready to repeat. Nobody was betting much on that game, let's be honest. Detroit was flying, the Vikings coming off highs and lows, and it seemed like another sour afternoon. But it wasn't. The team showed grit, discipline, and a perfect tactical plan. And that kind of victory tends to ignite a pattern in O'Connell. He catches momentum and shifts the tide. It was like that in 2022 when he strung together 7 wins after beating the Lions. It was like that in 2023 with the team resurrecting even after Kirk Cousins' injury and an improbable run with Joshua Dobbs. And it was like that in 2024 with 9 consecutive wins after a rough start. It's almost a Swiss watch. Every year, a turning moment. Now looking at the schedule, the scenario fits nicely. After the Lions comes the Ravens, Bears, Packers, and Seahawks. It's not a walk in the park, but neither is it impossible. The Ravens have an inconsistent defense. The Bears are still that unpredictable rival. The Packers have become recent victims. And the Seahawks? Well, the Seahawks are that long travel road test and hostile field. But if the Vikings get rolling, everything changes. And there's more. The psychological factor matters. When a group wins a game nobody expected, confidence comes back with force. O'Connell is a master at turning that into fuel. He knows how to handle the locker room. He knows how to talk. He knows how to rebuild morale. The team seems to have reclaimed the Defend the North spirit, that sensation that nothing is impossible when the purple jersey steps on the field. Flores' defense also helps sustain that idea. Even with limitations, it's a group that has stopped big names, Barkley, Gibbs, and that is starting to gain identity. What's missing is consistency on offense, and that can come now with McCarthy gaining rhythm. The environment is perfect for another run. To be honest with you, if the Vikings get past the Ravens, the conversation changes completely. The fans go back to dreaming playoffs, the league starts respecting again, and O'Connell confirms the strategist reputation who transforms crisis into historic moment. Comment below if you feel this streak is coming. And stay, because what J.J. McCarthy did in the last game showed this team found its Purple Heart again. Man, what J.J. McCarthy did against the Lions was to silence a lot of people. After 6 weeks out with a heavy ankle sprain, the kid came back and rekindled something that the fan missed. Soul. That kind of fire that makes the team play with its heart on the edge. And to be honest, it was one of the most symbolic performances of the Kevin O'Connell era. During the week, the mood at the TCO Performance Center was tense. The team was 3-4, morale shaken, uncertainty in the air. Then McCarthy comes in, young, confident, asking to be tested again. When the doctors showed the x-ray and cleared him, O'Connell himself said, "What is that?" The doctor's reply was perfect. "That right there is the dog in him." And that's exactly what he showed on the field. It wasn't video game numbers, 143 yards, 2 touchdowns through the air and 1 rushing, but it was the way. He commanded the team, inspired, vibrated, and most importantly, made the locker room believe again. Who saw the pregame knows. The speech he gave to the captains became fuel. He said he saw an opportunity served on a silver platter, juicy and ready to be grabbed. That's not a rookie line, it's a leader's line. And when the ball rolled, the kid turned giant. Even after giving up a long touchdown to Sam Laporta to open the game, he responded immediately with 2 solid drives, taking the lead and controlling the rhythm. The defense did its share, disrupting Jared Goff enough to keep the Lions at arm's length. And even the special teams chipped in by blocking a field goal and silencing the stadium. But the moment that will remain was the final drive. Everything pointed to the drive dying after a miscommunication with Jordan Mason. But McCarthy improvised, escaped, found Jalen Naylor with a perfect borderline pass. That changed the vibe of the team. Justin Jefferson did a kip-up to celebrate as McCarthy took the final knee. When McCarthy entered the locker room, his teammates mobbed him as if to thank him for reminding them of the team they could be. O'Connell gave him one of his signature game balls during the post-game speech, and McCarthy broke the team down before getting ready for the flight back to Minneapolis. This is not the first time a team has gotten its swagger back at Ford Field, but it was a throwback to when the Vikings made teams play on their terms. While the Vikings felt like a house pet during a thunderstorm against the Chargers, McCarthy described them like a dog in the streets moments after Sunday's win. It's the mentality the Purple Faithful needed. Attitude, identity, and a quarterback who makes the team believe again. And look, if that spirit continues, nobody's going to want to cross this group in the coming weeks. Comment below if you felt the vibe changed in Minnesota, and stick around because the next part shows some stories nobody expected to pop up in this mid-season. Look, if there's something nobody expected in this mid-season, it was the twists inside the Vikings roster. Some stories that seemed secondary ended up stealing the scene. And to be honest, they show how this team is still adjusting after a turbulent start. First, the most glaring, the defensive line. The money spent to shore up the interior with Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave was supposed to transform the front into a fortress. But so far, the impact has been timid. Allen has just 1.5 sacks, Hargrave only 3. Not much for guys who arrived with heavy contracts. But to be fair, the game against the Lions showed a glimpse of what can come. Together, they combined for 6 pressures and 4 hits on Jared Goff, finally looking like the dominant duo the fans expected. Meanwhile, the veterans try to get going. A name unexpected started to stand out, Jalen Redmond. The guy came practically out of nowhere and already tied a personal high in tackles for loss and set a new career high in sacks. That's the type of player who exploits the gap and changes the defensive rotation. That's what winning rosters are built from. Now, the weirdest case, Ivan Pace. The linebacker who burst on the scene in 2023 now simply disappeared from main rotations. He was even benched in the game against the Eagles, something unthinkable months ago. In contrast, who resurfaced was Eric Wilson, the same guy who'd played for Minnesota before and came back with fire. 7 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. That's the kind of performance that changes the hierarchy. This contrast shows how much the defense is going through internal adjustments. Brian Flores is testing, shifting, trying to find the balance between experience and explosion. And to be honest, this is the kind of oscillation that builds a team ready for playoffs. Pace may still reclaim his space, but for now, Wilson became the hot name of the unit. And to complete it, the quarterback carousel. McCarthy injured, Wentz stepping in, getting hurt, and now the rookie back holding the reins. That seesaw shakes the whole offensive rhythm, but also exposes the human side of the roster, resilience. It's impressive how the team still managed to close the first half of the season at 4-4 after so many changes. At the end of the day, these hidden stories tell more about the Vikings spirit than many stats. It's the type of roster that gets knocked down, gets up, and still finds unlikely heroes on the way. Comment below if you also like those stories that come out of nowhere. And hold on, because the next one has a message that shook the entire fan base. This last one is simply sensational and shows just how much this roster is locked in and with blood in its eyes. The protagonist? Jonathan Greenard, the edge rusher who has become one of the most authentic voices in that locker room. And this time, he didn't speak on the field, but live on air, straight to the media, with a provocation and a laugh on the go. It all started when host Paul Meat Sauce Lambert of the Power Trip show on KFAN predicted a humiliating loss for the Vikings to the Lions, 55-10. Yep, 55-10. The joke spread fast on social media, but no one expected that Greenard had heard it until he showed up on the show days later. During the interview, he talked about the team's spirit and praised J.J. McCarthy, saying the young man sees it all, hears it all, and knows what's happening out there. Then came the killer line. He knows Meat Sauce is out there saying we're going to lose 55 to whatever it is. The studio burst into laughter, but the message was clear. This group pays attention to everything. And the coolest part was the tone of the conversation. Instead of resentment, Greenard turned it into motivation. We're an underdog team. We're not always the top dogs, and that's precisely what makes us fight harder, he said, with that calm of someone speaking from truth. The provocation became fuel, and even the host joined the joke. Corey Cove asked, "And the Ravens, are they going to steamroll you too?" Lambert tried to wiggle out, but Greenard answered straight, "Go ahead and say 55-10 again, maybe it'll bring luck again." Everyone laughed, but behind the joke, it was clear how much the internal vibe changed. The team is having fun, it's confident, it's comfortable with the game, and that often leads to results on the field. And to top it off, there came a symbolic touch. The sportsbooks listed the Ravens as 3.5-point favorites despite the game being at US Bank Stadium. For Greenard and company, that's another spark to ignite. They already proved they can bust predictions, and now they want to turn every critique into ammunition. These things may seem small, but they build culture. When a player publicly defends the group, he sends a message to the fans, to the media, and to the locker room. Nobody messes with us. And that is exactly how the Purple Faithful likes to see the team. United, provocative, and with attitude. Comment below if you also dig this underdog spirit that the Vikings found again. Because what this roster showed in the past weeks, you can dream big. Look, after all of this, you can feel that the mood in Minnesota changed for good. A GM who thought with his head, a coach who knows the DNA of victory, a quarterback who reignited the pride, and a roster that answered with soul. The Vikings are far from perfect, but they're back to being a team that bothers, that plays with purpose. And if that spirit holds, nobody is going to stop this purple. Comment below. This space is for everyone who lives the Purple Faithful. Because when this team attacks, the entire NFC feels it. Stay tuned. SKOL Vikings, let's go!